is mandatory. In fact, they agree that if someone were to deny zakat to be part of the Sharia, to be part of what's obligation upon the Muslimin, then that person becomes, unfortunately, a kafir. Why? Because it's ma'loomun min ad-din bid-darura. It's something that is known. It's like salat. Unless if the person doesn't know because they are new to Islam, that's a different case. It's called hadithu ahdin bi Islam. But the person who is aware that zakat is part of the Sharia and will deny it, then actually that itself takes him out of Islam. As a general rule, this is just to show how important zakat is. Allah Azza wa Jalla mentions zakat in the Quran in many places. وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. When the Prophet ﷺ passed away, alayhi salatu wassalam, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu became the Khalifa, some Arabs, some tribes decided to stop giving the zakat. They were called Mani'i zakat. What did Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu do? He fought them. He declared war against them without any question. Even Umar radiallahu anhu, he had to have a debate with Abu Bakr. He said to him, how can you fight people who declare that there is no God except Allah and Muhammad is the divine messenger? How can you fight Muslims? He said, Ya Umar, والله لا أقاتلن من فرق بين الصلاة والزكاة فإن الزكاة حق المال. He said, I will fight any person who differentiates between salat and zakat. The scholars of Islam even debated about if a person stops giving zakat, is he still Muslim? Without denying that zakat is obligatory. Because if they claim that zakat is not part of Islam, that itself takes them out of Islam, as all the scholars agreed, the four schools and beyond, as Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu did. But if they still believe that zakat is part of this Shari'at al-Rahman, but they decided to stop giving zakat, the majority of the scholars said the person is still Muslim, but he is in an extremely difficult situation. Is the worst of all sins, because zakat is part of other people's huquq, other people's rights. Because this money, people sometimes tend to forget that the money you have is not yours. The money you have is not yours. Al-milkiyya majaziyya, as we say in Lugha al-Arabiyya, because the ownership comes into two categories in Islam. Real ownership and what we call milkiyya majaziyya. You are called the owner, but in the reality you are not the owner. You are a secondary hand. You're not the upper hand. Allah Azza wa Jalla is al-Malik and al-Malik. He's the owner, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He owns you, He owns what you own. He owns the universe and whatever the universe contains. There's no owner here amongst people. King, queen, a father, a parent, a child, a businessman, a trader, whatever you want to call yourself, you don't own anything. You don't even own yourself. So the zakat that you need to give from the money you have, it's not your haqq, it's other people's huquq. And that's why Islam is very strict when it comes to zakat, giving zakat. It's not yours. It's like if you go and hijack some person's belongings, stealing a car or stealing a house or breaking into somebody's property. Same thing. When you don't give zakat, that's what you're doing. You're taking other people's rights. It's not your right. That 2.5% of the zakat is no longer yours. So that's why Abu Bakr was very firm when some people decided not to give zakat. The Prophet ﷺ said in Hadith Abdullah ibn Umar, "Bunya al-Islamu ala khams." Islam is built on 5 pillars, as most of us know this hadith. Shahadati an la ilaha illallah, to bear witness that there is no God except Allah Azza wa Jal. Iqam as-salah wa iqam as-salah, performing salah. Wa ita'i az-zakah wa sawmi Ramadan wa hajj al-bayt. These 5 pillars are the corner, the pillars that if you don't have, your Islam starts collapsing. It's like a building. Each one you lose big portion of your faith. So that's a zakat. I'm going to go through a quick text here, so I jump things that you don't really in need of. The hikmah of zakat, as I said, the wisdom is that poverty, it is Allah's qadr for sure, but at the same time it's a very horrible phenomena, social phenomena. It's not something Allah wants. It's something people unfortunately participate to create. Many experts in finance, they said if people were to give zakah properly, we shall have no poor people, unfortunately. No, but we have them. So it means zakat itself is sufficient to bring all those poor people into a certain level where they can have their necessities without being in need to give their hands to people to feed them or to feed their children. So it's Allah's qadr, because it's a test. It's like illness, just like illnesses. Allah would test you with illnesses. It's Allah's qadr. Nothing can take place in Allah's creation without His permission, but at the same time it doesn't mean that people are not the cause of these illnesses. Because a person who goes and take all these toxins into his body and smoke all day long and combine it with drinking wine, etc., he is actually bringing illness to himself. But the illness is Allah's qadr. So this is how it's good for us to understand the connection between our practices, what we exercise, and Allah's qadr subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, zakat purifies your money. Now, beside that zakat is obligatory upon you, it purifies your money. This is one of the reasons why it's called zakat. Zakat in Lugha al-Arabiya is an-nama, when something increases. Also from a tazkiyah, it purifies your money and increases the wealth in society. And subhanAllah, when you look at the zakat, maybe we'll come across this later on, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He asked you to give part of your money as zakat, He's not making it hard for you. He's actually making it good for you as well. If you have a certain amount of money, and that certain amount is called nisab, but you have less of that certain amount of money, there's no need to give zakat. Allah takes into consideration your situation and takes into consideration your circumstances. If you have, let's say you have a farm and you grow fruit, we're going to come to fruit if there is zakat in fruit and vegetables, because it's debatable. According to Abu Hanifa, yes. According to the majority, there is no zakat. But imagine you have your own field, land, and you're the one who brings water to the field. So you pay other people money to bring water because you don't have, let's say there is no rain or the rain is not enough, you don't have a well, you don't have a river next to you, so you're the one who pay money to bring water to water your field, you give half zakat if you want to use that half zakat. Otherwise means you give less, you give 50%. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal wants to make it easy for you. Because you are already spending money to water your field, Allah is saying to you, pay nisf al-ushr, basic as we can later, as we're going to cover later, half of the person who actually has a field and the rain is the main source for watering the land. So Allah Azza wa Jal takes into consideration people's circumstances. So zakat, we see it as something that is good for us. It purifies our money. It purifies our hearts from greed. Because some people, unfortunately, they have greed. They can do a lot of things, a lot of ibadat. They can do qiyam al-layl, they can do tahajjud, they can do as-siyam, they can fast. They can do a lot of things. But as soon as it comes to money, subhanAllah, they are so greedy. They are so connected with the money. Subhanallah. Some people are like that. It's called al-bukhl. Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned al-bukhl in the Quran. It's something that Allah dislikes. Allah doesn't love people who are greedy, selfish. They just want to keep things for themselves. So zakat forces you, if you have that kind of attribute, zakat forces you to become a spender, a person who spends. And subhanAllah, with the time, you manage to get out of that habit of being, or that attribute of being stingy. Because if you keep repeating something, when it becomes a habit, subhanAllah, it makes it easy for you to change your nature. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَيَصْدُقُ وَيَتَحَرَّ الصِّدْقَ حَتَّى يُكْتَبَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ صِدِّيقًا. A person who speaks the truth, and he keeps speaking the truth, Allah Azza wa Jal will write him amongst those who are siddiqeen, people of the truth. Why? Scientifically we know this, and psychologically, when you keep forcing of your nature. Also he said, وَإِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَا يَكْذِبُ وَيَتَحَرَّ الْكَذِبَ حَتَّى يُكْتَبَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ كَذَّابًا. Also a person will say a lie, and then he will say a lie, and then he will get used to saying lies. He will keep lying all the time until you find a person lying without a reason. Allah writes his name in under the category of liars. Why? Because it becomes a nature of that person. So whatever you keep doing, it becomes your nature. When you keep giving sadaqah, zakat forces you to do that because you have no choice. So you keep giving your zakat, and then until you become kareem, jawad, you become a spender. You start giving more than what you normally give in zakat. Even outside zakat, you give a lot of sadaqah. Why? Because zakat, subhanallah, tamed your nafs, tamed yourself. It brought you from being connected so much with the money to become a person who actually spends on people, whether through zakat or through normal sadaqah. So that's a very beautiful benefit of zakat itself. And we have many non-Muslims who got used to giving charity. They give more than what zakat is, and they're happy to do so because it became their nature. They love it, they enjoy it. One of the things about zakat, first of all, is zakat obligatory upon everyone? No. Zakat is obligatory upon certain people. Number one, upon Muslims. If a non-Muslim were to come now and say, I've got £5,000, I want to give you in zakat, we say no. One of the conditions for zakat to be valid, it has to come from a Muslim. Islam is a condition for a zakat to be recognized as zakat. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ طَيِّبٌ لَا يَقْبَلُ إِلَّا طَيِّبًا. Allah is pure. He doesn't accept anything that is not pure. Allah is tayyib. Al-mal al-haram, if somebody now comes and he says, Akhi, I've got a nightclub and I've got a bar and I've got this or that, and he sells whatever haram stuff and he wants to give zakat. No, this is no zakat. There is no zakat in al-haram. Allahu tayyib. You need to get rid of that al-haram for sure, yes, but not through zakat. Allah is tayyib. Imagine how merciful Allah is. Allah doesn't want to give impurity to Muslims, to people who deserve zakat. Allahu Akbar. Because Allah doesn't harm him subhanahu wa ta'ala if your money, because money itself cannot be impure. It's the action. That's why if a parent sells alcohol and alcohol is his main income, that is haram for him, not for his children. His children are actually eating al-halal. So money itself doesn't become like impure by itself. It's the action of the person. He is in sin, not the children, because they are under his responsibility. They have nothing to do with his actions. So Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't harm him subhanahu wa ta'ala if your money is coming from al-halal or haram. But Allah wants those poor people to get the best of the money of people. So He said, you have to be Muslim and your money has to be halal. If you bring in, like a riba for instance, usury. So you're not selling alcohol, your money is halal, but you mix it with the riba. You deal with a riba, usually. There's a debate amongst the scholars. There's a debate amongst the scholars about this money, if there is zakat or not. Some said yes, some said no. Some said no because it's a riba. Some said it's okay to take zakat from that money because the money itself wasn't haram. The portion of riba, the al-fa'ida, is what makes it haram. Otherwise, the money itself at the beginning, if you have £5,000, it's your halal. And when you've done the riba, usually the extra money is what is haram, not the £5,000 itself. So that is one of the things that the person who's giving zakat has to have. He has to be Muslim, Islam. As-sabi wal-majnoon. Now, some children have money because let's say the father passed away and he left £10,000, or he left a business for the children. The children are still young, 10 years old, 5 years old, 12 years old, they're still young. Or the child, or the person a man who lost his mind. He had money, he still has the money, but he lost his mind. He became majnoon, means he's mindless. Of course, there is no salat, there is no zakat. There is no salat, there is no zakat. There are no things like this upon that person because he lost his mind. But is zakat still obligatory? Because he has the money, he has a business running. He lost his mind, but the business is still running. The children are not obliged to pray and fast, but their father left a business for them, or he left a big amount of money. Yes, there is zakat, even though the children are not obliged to pray and fast. But when it comes to zakat, because zakat is because of the money, not because of the person. Because there is money, and in this money, because this money is halal, portion of it, which is zakat amount, portion of it doesn't belong, let's say, doesn't belong, as I said earlier, doesn't belong to the owner of the money. Belongs to al-fuqara, to poor people, masakin, etc., as we're going to come later on to explain. So yes, the child, but it's not the child who's going to give the zakat. The person, the guardian, the person who is responsible for the child is the one who's going to give the zakat on behalf of that child. Until the child reaches the puberty age and he's responsible, then he will be giving zakat by himself. But as long as he's still young, the person, whether his mother or his uncle or his cousin or whoever the person who's responsible for that child, needs to give the zakat from the money of that child. And we have evidences for that. There's no need to make it long. The second condition for zakat to become wajiba, fard, obligatory, is what we call a nisab. Not every amount of money. If you have £100, you don't have to give zakat for £100. So he has to reach a certain amount of money. It's called the nisab. The minimum amount, as soon as you have, then the zakat becomes wajiba, obligatory, to take from that amount of money towards other people who deserves it. So that is called a nisab. We're going to come to what is nisab, how much is a nisab. We'll come to that later on. Now, the other condition is dawaranul hawl. If you have gold, let's say, gold, because gold is called naqd, and fidda, the silver, these two are what we call a naqdan in Arabic, and in Sharia means the main source of wealth, gold and silver. The reason being is because we know gold and silver, especially gold, is very precious, has been precious for thousands of years. People recognized that in human history, gold was recognized to be precious, and they used to buy stuff through gold. So gold, let's say you have 100 grams of gold. The nisab that you need to give is about the amount of 85 grams. So if you have less than 80, now I came to nisab because I want to explain to you al-hawl. So they're linked. If you have 50 grams of gold, you don't have to give zakat. If you have 60 grams of gold, you don't have to give zakat. If you have 70 or 80 grams of gold, you don't have to give zakat. As soon as you have 85 grams, this is according to the majority of the scholars. Some of them said 90 grams, 91 grams, 92 grams. The reason why they debate in this, because we don't know the exact weight they used to use in the past. So there is a small margin in this. So if you have 85 grams of gold, pure gold, 81 plus, then you need to give zakat from that 85 grams, which is, let's say in our percentage figures, 2.5% of that 85 grams of gold. So if you have 85 grams of gold, but you didn't have it the whole year, you had it for 3 months or 5 months. After 5 months it's gone, there's no zakat. Because as being obligatory upon you to give zakat in that amount of gold, it doesn't mean that you give it straight away. You have to have it for a year. So let's say today somebody came and sold some houses or whatever properties, and he bought some gold instead. You bought the gold today, you write the date. Okay, bought this amount of gold on Sunday, whatever the date is today, let's say the 3rd of Ramadan. Next year, same time, the 3rd of Ramadan, next year, if you're still alive, you look at the gold. If it's still there, then you give the zakat. That is called dawaranul hawl. This is from Allah's rahmah. Allah doesn't want to put burden on you. You have money, give. Though the amount of zakat is very little, it's very small, 2.5%. What is 2.5%? If you have £1,000, what's £25 out of £1,000? Nothing. But still, Allah is Rahim. He said, no. You don't give it straight away. Wait until next year. If you still have the same amount or more, not less than 85 grams of gold, then you give 2.5%. Sharia is very, subhanallah, rahima. Shari'at al-Rahman, when you think about it, you see the wisdom. There's no burden in Sharia. Zakat is very little. You wait for a year, and not everything you give zakat. Subhanallah al-Azim. And you compare zakat now and Sharia in general with the law that was made by humans. You see a lot of oppression there. A lot of oppression. When humans start legislating rules and regulations, you see dhulm, you see oppression there. But Rabb al-Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything, when you think about it logically, is into place. You see things, they're manageable and you can manage them. So, dawaran al-hawl. So the amount of money you have, you have to have it for a year, not just after 6 months. So even if you lose it just a month before a year, there's no zakat. In fact, even a couple of days, if you lose it, if you lose your money just a couple of days before the year is completed, there is no zakat. Because Allah knows your intention. You didn't do that deliberately to escape zakat, but you bought a car just before the zakat was due. You bought a house, you bought some clothes for your children. It's okay. Allah doesn't want to put burden on you. Now, one of the issues as well in zakat, in the topic of zakat with people, ad-duyun, loans. If you landed, let's say, £5,000 to somebody, or £10,000 as a loan, that is yours, isn't it? Do you give zakat in that? So now you have money, £5,000, £10,000, you gave it to your brother or your sister or somebody you're not responsible for financially as a loan. Now, the year has passed now, so it's time for zakat. Do you give zakat for the loan? There's a debate amongst the scholars about this. Some said yes, some said no. But here is the juice of this topic. If the loan you gave to the person, if you gave it to a person that we call al-mu'sir, a person who cannot pay back, they're broke. They know they need to give you your money back, but they say, and it happens a lot between brothers and sisters. When you go to collect your money, the money is not there. They make excuses. Whether true excuses or false excuses, that's another topic. But your money is there. And it's beyond a nisab, which means there is zakat. But it's not in your pocket. So if the money you gave to the person is something you can get back, stay with me brothers, it's something you cannot get back, there is no zakat. Even though it's your money, there is no zakat. You don't pay zakat because it's not guaranteed that you will get it back. It's gone. Though it's yours, if you don't get it in this dunya, you're going to get it yawm al-qiyamah, but because it's not in your pocket, it's with the person you landed it to, so there is no zakat. Even if it stays there for 10 years, there is no zakat until it comes back. When it comes back, then you give zakat. Second scenario in loans, if you landed, let's say, that £5,000 to somebody, but the due date is not due yet. The date that they need to return it back is not due yet. Let's say you gave £5,000 last year with the idea that they will return the money in 3 years' time. In this case, you don't have the money. Also, you don't give zakat. Though the person has the money, but he's not giving you the money because you agreed with them that they will return the money in 3 years' time. So in this case, also it's debatable, but you don't give zakat because it's not guaranteed. Yeah, they have it today, but maybe after 3 years, the money is not there. They become broke, for instance. But the third scenario, you need to give zakat, which is if you lend your money to a person who is wealthy. Wealthy means if you ask him, can I have my money back? He says, yes, here it is. So if the person you lended £5,000 to is able to give it to you back, whenever you ask for it, you give zakat, even if it's still with them. You give zakat. Why? Because you are, we say in Arabic, fi hukm al-malik. You are actually, though it's not in your pocket, but it's kind of in your pocket, because you know if you ask the brother to give you the money back, he will give it straight away. So this is the summary of zakat when it comes to loans. I'm escaping things that you won't need for now, maybe when you become, especially me, poor people, broke people, but inshallah when we become very wealthy and we have like properties and stuff, then we can deal with that. Okay. Salary is another common thing in our society. You have a big salary, let's say 3,000, whatever, £3,000 a month, or 2.5 or 5, or whatever your salary is. Is this zakat in salary? No, there is no zakat, though it is a large amount of money. Until, because salary, you use it for what? You use it for your day-to-day expenses. You buy food, you buy things, you buy clothes for your children, you buy Eid gifts, whatever you buy. But if the savings you have from your salary accumulates and becomes, and they worth about 85 grams of gold, which is about £2,000, just above £2,000, because that's the nisab, about £2,000. So it's above £2,000, and you have it for more than a year, then you give zakat. So salary itself, there is no zakat in it. Zakat is in the savings you saved for a year and plus, that is more than £2,000 and so on. About 85 grams of gold, it comes to £2,100, something like that, or even less than 2,001, probably £2,000, just above £2,000. It depends upon the market where you are and how much is gold, etc. You can also calculate it with silver, if you want to be more generous, because silver is cheaper than gold. Silver is about 595 grams of silver, that is a nisab. So if you have cash, savings, that is worth buying 595 grams of silver, it's about £1,000, and so, just giving you like a rough idea, it's about £1,000, then you give zakat. So if you will be more generous, you use silver value, not gold, because gold is about 2,000. So if you have less than 2,000, there is no zakat, because you're using gold, and you have a right to use gold, because there's no evidence that you have to use this or that. In fact, some scholars, they said it's better to use gold, though it's less for fuqara, they take less, but because gold is more static when it comes to value. Silver keeps changing all the time, but gold is kind of thabit, because it's precious, more precious. But if you want to be generous, as I said, use the nisab of silver, which is what's equivalent to 595 grams of silver. It's about £1,000. You can check, there are many websites now that gives you the value of gold and silver up to date. The date when you're going to give zakat, check online, and I will give you the exact value. And then based on that, you check what is the value of 595 grams of silver. Is £1,000 If you have 1,000 in cash for a year, then give zakat. If it's less, there's no zakat. So that's the idea of zakat. Nisab and 1 year to go around. And please, the year, you always use Hijri. Don't use what they call the English calendar. The reason is because it's less than the Hijri. The Hijri, I mean, yeah, it's less than the Hijri. So Hijri, and it's better to fix a date. Many people confuse themselves, when shall I give zakat? Just fix a date in your life. I know brothers who every 10th of Ramadan, they count how much money they have. So don't confuse yourself every time during the year. No, just fix one single date a year, Hijri calendar, Islamic calendar, Muharram, Safar, Rabi' al-Awwal, whatever month you choose, or Ramadan because it's more common and people, they're more generous. So Ramadan, fix a date, the beginning or the middle or the 10th or the last day of Ramadan, fix one date. Every year go and count your money, as I will explain to you how you count money. And then you give 2.5%, inshallah. So that is, so always use the Islamic calendar, Hijri calendar. If you do a business, this is another common scenario. So a brother has money, he gave you £5,000 or £10,000 to trade, to use it for business. So the £10,000 is not yours. It's not yours. You are only using it for trading, to trade. And then you have ribh, you have percentage from the profit. Okay? So I gave you £5,000, £10,000. I said, here's £10,000. Use it for trading, and the profit you have such and such amount, percentage of profit. Do you have to give zakat for that £10,000? It's called Ras al-Mal. No. It's not your responsibility. Though you have it with you, using it for trading, buy and selling, but there's no zakat on you, it's zakat on me, because I am the owner of that. But you have to calculate how much profit you make, and if you save more than the nisab, as I said earlier, for a year, then you give the zakat. But the money itself is not yours, it's the owner's. So he is responsible to give zakat for that amount of money that is used to trade and do business. So that's another scenario. It's called al-mudaraba. Charities like this, there's no zakat. Charities, because it's not a business, it's not trading, not buying and selling. The money comes to the charity, to the masjid, and then the masjid and the charity gives it back in Quran classes, in activities for the community, many things. To poor people when they come to collect zakat. So charity, there is no zakat, even if they have £50,000 or £100,000 or £500,000, as long as the money, because it doesn't belong to them. This is the rule, because it doesn't belong to an individual. It's just for the ummah, and it is used back for the ummah. So there is no charity, there is no zakat in charity money. That's very important, and I'm sure brothers, many brothers know this. Now, yes. اثنتان زكاة الفطر وزكاة المال, and then zakat al-mal comes into many categories. Now, not anything you own you need to give zakat. First of all, because they are known in the Sharia. It's not something we make up or we made up. It's something Allah decided. So number one, al-an'am. Al-an'am, animals. And not any animals, certain animals. Al-ibil, camels, because they are precious, they are like gold, they are very expensive. Cows and sheep. When we say cows, obviously we mean buffaloes as well. And when we say sheep, we mean al-ma'iz also, goats, etc. So these animals, there is zakat, and there is a certain amount how much you give. We're not going to go through that because it's a completely different scenario. We don't have that in London. But there is zakat. In this, if you have chicken, no, there's no zakat in chicken. There's no zakat. But if you use chicken for trading, it's called urud al-tijara, we will come to it. You're trading now, you're actually selling chicken. Then they become money. Because you don't see chicken as a chicken anymore, as a bird, you see it as pound, as money. Okay? Also, al-ibil and camels and cows, you don't see them as animals, you see them as money. So as soon as the zakat is due, you need to give. So if you have anything you have, and that's the second thing we're going to talk about is urud al-tijara. Urud al-tijara is another thing that you have to give zakat when it's due. Urud al-tijara means buying and selling goods. Yeah? Anything. Your house where you live, there's no zakat. Your bicycle, your car, your motorbike, you don't give zakat because it's something you use for your personal use. But as soon as you have something to trade, you put to sell, there is zakat. They call them urud al-tijara. Urud al-tijara, how do you do it? Let's say you are a grocery person, you have a grocery. Every 10th of Ramadan, or the date you have chosen, you count how much goods you have inside the shop. You value that. Okay? And you add to it cash if you have any savings. You add to it any loans you have with in the third category I mentioned earlier, the loan that you can bring anytime you want, you add it to that, and then you give 2.5% of the total after a year, not straight away. So every year you do this calculation. So the first thing we give zakat is called mal also in Arabic, is the animals. Ibil, camels, cows and sheep. The second, urud al-tijara, things that you buy and sell, business, okay? If you have a house, as I said, there's no. But if you have another house to sell, you put it in the market, you have to value it after a year and give zakat, even if it's not sold. If you buy a land, now back home in Morocco, Algeria, Somalia, wherever you buy a land, and your intention is to build a house for your family, there is no zakat in that land. Even if you buy it for £50,000 or £100,000, there is no zakat on that land, for that land, because you didn't buy the land to sell it. You bought the land so you can build a house for your family. There's no zakat. But as soon as you change your intention, you say, you know what, I'm going to sell that land. As soon as you make that intention to sell it, it becomes urud al-tijara, which means now from the intention, when you changed the intention, you start counting a year forward. Islamic calendar. If you still have that land, it wasn't sold, you need to give zakat. You're going to value that land. You need to value that land for the cost of the day, and then you give 2.5%. So these are called urud al-tijara. So zakat, very important to differentiate between what you use for yourself and your family and what you have there for business. If you have it for business, then you need to give zakat. If you're personal, even if you have 10 cars, let's say you are rich, yeah, and you have 10 cars or 50 cars, there's no zakat. Even if you drive them once a year, there's no zakat. But as soon as you have these cars for sale and you wanted to sell them, then zakat is wajib, is obligatory. Yes.
You have land, you want to sell, you couldn't get money. Yes, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. As soon when you buy, you start in 3 years, starting or the time you buy, or the time when you sell, you pay.
If you put a land for sale and it's not sold for 10 years, you still need to give zakat every year for that land. You still need, why? Because it's for trading. If you change one day, after 5 years or 3 years, the land wasn't sold, you say, you know what, khalas, it's not for sale anymore. Khalas, zakat stops here. It becomes personal. I'm just going to keep it for myself for building a house, whatever. So the intention is very important in zakat. If you put anything into business, to trade, then the zakat is 2 years. Yes.
Is it the same with renting, for example, if you're renting?
If you have a house and you rent it, there is no zakat on the house.
No, I mean as if you're renting, for example, cars for business.
Yes, you don't give zakat for the brother is asking if you have a house or 2 houses or a car or 2 cars, they're not for sale. You're not selling them. You are renting them. There's no zakat on the building or on the car because it's not for sale. You only give zakat for the profit, the money you get from the rent. You count if it's beyond the nisab and it passes the year, then you give the 2.5% of that. So anything used is called al-ijara. Anything used for renting, let's say you have properties in London or back home, you don't sell them, they're not for selling. You rent them like a hotel. You don't give zakat for the building because it's not for sale. You give zakat from the money, from the ijar you make. The money that you're making from these apartments is where the zakat is. That's a good question. Yes.
The gold for the son.
Yeah, the Sheikh is asking about zakatul huli. Gold, when you have gold or silver, there is zakat in it because it's money. Even if it's not for selling, because I'm coming. The gold itself is money. In fact, they value things on the basis of gold. So gold, you don't have to have the intention of selling. No, as soon as you have gold, you have to give zakat. As soon as you have silver. But what about jewelry? Gold that is made to use for personal usage. Your wife, yourself, if you wear jewelry like silver, etc. And you have a lot of that stuff. There's a debate amongst the scholars if you need to give zakat on that jewelry after each year. Many Sahaba, Aisha, Abdullah ibn Umar, many Sahaba, they said there is no zakat because it's not for trading. It's even if you use it only once a year or once every 3 years in a wedding and that's it. As long as your jewelry or your missus jewelry is not for selling, for trading, there's no zakat. But some other scholars said yes because it's gold and it's silver. I lean towards the first opinion because 5 of the Sahaba of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ stated that there is no zakat on al-huli. There is no zakat on the jewelry that is used for personal usage, it's not business. But as soon as you change your intention, because some women change the intention to selling now, they want to trade through that time it becomes urut, it becomes a business now. Then you need to take it as a business, not as a personal usage. That's another very common question. Okay, let me jump into something. If you have any question, feel free. Zakat also is obligatory upon us in al-hubub wal-zuru', whatever will grow in the land, the crop. Not everything, according to the majority of the scholars. They said only like barley, wheat, zabib, raisins, and dates, tamr. These four, because they used to be the main source of food and al-qut in the course of centuries, not just the time of Rasulullah, it's until now. And you can add to it al-aruz, like rice, things that are, whether from, basically things that people use according to their, it's like in Morocco, for instance, we don't use too much rice. But in Middle East, Asia, and also Asia, they use a lot of rice. So for us in Morocco, we use something else, wheat, barley, etc. So it depends upon where you come from. But these things, there is zakat in them. Beyond that, there is no zakat. Especially fruits that doesn't last for long. Something you cannot dry, like dry fruit, there is zakat. Why? Because they stay for long. They can be used as food for a certain period of time. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah had a different opinion. Abu Hanifa, Nu'man bin Thabit rahimahullah, he said anything that grows, there is zakat. Anything that grows, there is zakat. Even fruits, vegetables. If you have a farm and you grow vegetables and fruits, there is zakat. And they calculate zakat in a different way, not as gold and silver. That's Abu Hanifa's opinion. Some scholars and modern scholars, they follow the same opinion because they said, because there are billions of pounds made from vegetables and fruits. So if we say that these people don't give zakat, and we say to a person who has like a small farm of dates, a couple of trees, they said doesn't add up. But the majority of scholars said we stick with what's in Al-Quran and Sunnah. We cannot tell people, because people's wealth is haram to take without their permission. So to say to them you have to give this amount of money without strong evidence from Quran and Sunnah is something that we can't do. But we encourage them to purify their rizq through a sadaqah, to give sadaqah as much as they can. But we cannot make it obligatory upon them because there is no evidence. And they have many evidences why they said there is no zakat on vegetables and fruits. But anything that is qut, anything that people can eat, and anything people can, is called al-iddikhar, they can save for months to come and years to come, then we give zakat. Fruits, we can't do that. If you have apple has a certain amount of, it has a certain date to go off. Banana now, if you live in your kitchen for more than 7 days, khalas, it's finished. So there is no iddikhar. The majority of the scholars said we have to be able to say, not through fridges, no, because it has to be able to stay longer without any means. If you can start using fridges, then you just, because this is a modern thing. We can't change Sharia because we have fridges nowadays and they didn't have fridges before. No. So this is why the scholars said there is no zakat on vegetables and fruits, but there are zakat on other things. If you come across any question that you wanted to ask, Bismillah. I'm just trying to jump things that you don't really need. If you have, in case you have a farm or something, the nisab of it is about just above 600 kilogram. So if you have a farm, let's say you grow wheat or barley, okay, or dates or raisins. This is what you do, yeah? No, you don't give zakat on any amount. It has to be more than 600 kilogram and above. Less than that, you don't give zakat. Okay, so that's the nisab of it. Yes, sir.
The same question, the same thing. You have a land and you grow a lot of things, different crop you're doing, and some of them they calculated about what the thing about the grow up and you sell, then you calculate how much you get it.
Yes.
Then you pay for the zakat.
This is for the majority of the scholars when they said there is no zakat on vegetables. They said, but when you sell them, this is what the Prophet is referring to. When you sell them, as we said, anything you sell, there is zakat. We're just talking about vegetables as vegetables and fruit as fruit. But as soon as you sell them, because some people have this crop and they don't sell it. They just keep it for themselves and family and give it to people, neighbors and the tribe. You know, they don't do business in that. But if you put your if you start selling them, of course there is zakat. When the money comes, you give 2.5% of that when the year passes. It's like, as I said, it has to be the whole year, not just straight away. It has to be because it becomes urud al-tijara. All right. Anything else? حبوب. Fidda, we finished with that. I think we're done. Al-Fitr, Zakat al-Fitr is the zakat that is linked with Siyam Shahr Ramadan. The barakah of Zakat al-Fitr is, you know, when you do a mistake in salat, when you're praying and you do a mistake and you were confused or whatever, and then you finish your salat, and then what you do? You do sujood al-sahw. You do 2 sujood. Why do we do these 2 sujood? To do 2 things. إرغاما لأنف الشيطان, so we can annoy shaitan, because he's the one who tried to confuse you in salat. So we finish salah with something that he refused to do when Allah asked him to do sujood, because shaitan hates a sujood. When he sees people doing sujood, he actually cries. So we do that irghaman li'anfi shaitan. Okay, you wanted to confuse me? Here are 2 sujood for you. Here's some pain. Number 2 is to fix the gaps of the error in salat. So those errors you had in salah, they are errors. These 2 sujood, Allah uses them to complete those gaps in your salat. Same in Ramadan. When we fast, there are gaps in our fasting. We say things we shouldn't say, we look at things we shouldn't look by mistake, whatever. There are gaps. When you give zakat al-fitr, it fills those gaps for yourself. Because Allah wanted to take your siyam complete, so He can reward you for completely. Subhanahu, out of His generosity, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is zakat al-fitr. And it's obligatory. Zakat al-fitr is wajibah. Upon you, your wife, your children, anyone that is under your responsibility, you give zakat for them. If you are here, you give it here. If you are back home, you give it back home. Wherever you are, you give it. That is zakat al-fitr. They calculate it as £5. I don't know how much the up and downs. But many people, I am one of them, I send it abroad. There's a debate amongst the scholars if you can actually send zakat abroad. Zakat normally should stay in the country, because there are poor people in the country. So if everyone is taking the zakat outside, who's going to help poor people in this country? So we need to keep some zakat in the country where you are, so we can tackle poverty and give those who are around us, who are not fortunate like us, homeless people, those people who deserve zakat, we give them some of the zakat. So zakat shouldn't be taken all of it outside. But sometimes you have more priority outside. If you have your auntie, not your mom, because your mom is your responsible, you have to support your mom, not from zakat. People that you are responsible for, you don't give them zakat. You give zakat only to people whom you are not responsible for financially. Khala, amma, neighbors. Of course, and Allah will reward her for that. If the husband is poor, why? Because she's not responsible for him financially, according to the mass majority of the scholars, contrary to Ibn Hazm. Ibn Hazm has a different opinion. Ibn Hazm, many people don't know this. Ibn Hazm, he said, if you become broke as a husband, you've been working for the family for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, and you become ill and sick and you lost your job, and your wife, she was collecting money, she becomes very wealthy. Many scholars said, that's her money. Ibn Hazm said, that's the foolish thing you should say. He said, she needs to spend on him until he gets back on his feet again. So that's Ibn Hazm. Many scholars don't know this, many scholars don't want to mention it, many scholars don't even think about it, but it's something that is good. For me at least, I enjoy Ibn Hazm many times, even if I disagree with him, because he had a very critical mind. And he had, of course, his own opinion, his own evidences in this, but this is what he said. But the majority of the scholars, yes, she can give zakat to her husband because she's not responsible for him. Yeah. So zakat al-fitr, that is zakat al-fitr, to complete the siyam of people, and you give it for your children. Can you give it for babies who are not born yet? Yes, you can include them in your zakat, as long as they are 4 months and above, because 4 months the soul is ordered by Allah to go inside them. But if your wife is pregnant, 4 months pregnant, then he is alive, yeah, and he's pregnant, 4 months old in her womb, then you include him in the zakat they give. If you have 5 children and include him, that's 6, and etc. Allah, yes, sir.
Sometimes we send money back home, like with our relatives in business. In accumulations within a year, it will cost us more than 2.5% of the required. We consider zakat.
No, any charity you give, even if you give all of your wealth, is not considered zakat. Zakat is a ibadah, like salat, like prayer. You have to have that intention that this is the zakat. No, you can't. It has to be before you give. If you give your auntie £10,000 last month, and now zakat is due, which is maybe you need to pay £100, and you want to give her zakat, you don't say, well, I gave her £10,000 last month. That £10,000 cannot replace a zakat. Zakat is a ibadah, it needs intention. If there is no intention, there is no ibadah to zakat. But if you give them money, then it's better to give zakat to other people, definitely. Not to the same person, as long as you give them more than 2.5%. And in a regular basis, then maybe. But if you want to give them zakat, you can give them zakat as long as they are poor. Now the zakat is given they are called masarif zakat. You give them to al-fuqara, poor people basically. Al-masakin, Allah mentioned fuqara al-masakin. In English, is masakin, poor people, fuqara, poor people. But the difference is, some poor people, they're actually 100% broke. Because even the scholars differ. Which one which of the two mean completely broke? So al-fuqara are the people who are completely broke. Al-masakin, they're not completely broke, but what they have is less than what they need for themselves and their families. Necessities. So you can give zakat to a person who has a job. You can. Because if they have a salary and the salary is very low, it doesn't cover all the expenses, their necessities. That, you know, sometimes they get stuck with the bills, they get stuck with buying clothes for their children, their necessities. Then they are masakin, you give them zakat for sure. People also, charities who collect zakat, al-amilun alayha wal-amilin alayha, you can give them part of the zakat because they are spending time to collect zakat and take it here and give it to us, so they're busy with, you can give them. Also you can give to students. We have many students here that don't have money. They're doing, and it doesn't have to be a student of Sharia. No, any student, as long as he's studying something that is beneficial for him, for the ummah, be it physics, chemistry, medicine, maths, history, English, as long as they're not studying something that is haram, then you can give them zakat and help them. Yes, sir. Before I forget, travelers as well, people who come to this country, they don't have money, they don't have jobs, homeless, ibn sabil, they're just passing by. Even if they're wealthy back home, if they don't have access to their money back home and they are stuck here, you can give them from zakat, even if they are wealthy, according to what the scholars said. Yes, طبعا. Zakat al-Fitr also, before I forget, the time for Zakat al-Fitr, when you give Zakat al-Fitr, when we say Zakat al-Fitr, we know what Zakat al-Fitr is, the one you give after Ramadan, the Eid day. You give it, the best time for it, al-Waqt al-Mustahab, is before Salat al-Eid, before the prayer of al-Eid. That's how the Prophet ﷺ recommended the Sahaba to do. To give zakat before, so everyone is happy, not after, because you want them, when they come for salah, that at least they're not thinking about what they're going to feed their children if they are poor. So give them zakat before. Another time for it is because if there's a reason, you can give it to a day or 2 days before Eid. Especially if you're going to send it to people who are not from London, they are away from you, you can give it a day or 2 days. But more than that, no, it's not going to be counted as salah. But what you do is, if you're going to send it back home, get it out of your pocket first. Give it to the person who's going to take it. Let's say I'm going to send zakat al-fitr to Morocco, to my country, and I know I'm not going to Morocco in Eid. So what I would do is, I give it to somebody who's going. They will go. Even after Eid, it's okay. But at least I give it them before Salat al-Eid, before Eid prayer. I gave it to them, so it's out of my pocket now. I gave it. Khalas. Whenever that person is ready, he can take it. But it has to be out of your pocket before Salat al-Eid. If Salat al-Eid comes and you prayed Eid and you didn't give zakat yet, that is a sin. You need to ask Allah for forgiveness and tawbah, because zakat is wajibah. Also, it's not going to be, you're not going to be rewarded for it as zakat. It's going to be a charity, because you delayed it for no reason. So, zakat is very important. It's not our huquq, it's huquq al-akharin, other people's rights. So we need to take in seriously that this is something that I need to do, and I have no choice. But of course we do it out of pleasure as well, alhamdulillah. That's the best of ibadah, when it's called al-ihsan, أن تعبد الله كأنك تراه فإن لم تكن تراه فهو يراك. You worship Allah as if you see him subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you don't see him, obviously you don't see him, he can see you subhanahu wa ta'ala. I think that should be enough, inshallah. Other things are more, too much details about al-ashum, if you have a share in a company. Maybe we'll leave that for another time, inshallah, because may Allah bless you and look after you. جزاكم الله خير. نوركم الله. اللهم لك الحمد. اللهم لك الحمد حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم في العالمين انك حميد مجيد. اللهم اقسم لنا من خشيتك ما تحول به بيننا وبين معصيتك، ومن طاعتك ما تبلغنا به جنتك، ومن اليقين ما تهون به علينا مصائب الدنيا، ومتعنا اللهم باسماعنا وابصارنا وقواتنا ما احييتنا، واجعله الوارث منا، ولا تجعل الدنيا أكبر همنا ولا مبلغ علمنا ولا غاية أملنا، ولا تجعل إلى النار مصيرنا. اللهم من كان منا مريضا فاشفه، ومن كان منا ضالا فاهده، ومن كان منا شاردا عن دينك فرده إلى دينك ردا جميلا. اللهم من كان منا محتاجا فاعطه حتى يرضى يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم اشف مرضانا واشف آباءنا وأمهاتنا وإخواننا وأخواتنا شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم اشف والدينا وإخواننا وأخواتنا شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم اشفنا وإياهم شفاء لا يغادر سقما. اللهم لا تجعل فينا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم لا تجعل فينا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم لا تجعل فينا شقيا ولا محروما. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان الله رب العرش العظيم. سبحان الله رب العرش العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والعصمة من كل ذنب والغنيمة من كل بر والسلامة من كل إثم. لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا كربا إلا فرجته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة هي لك رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم ارحم آباءنا وأمهاتنا وأجدادنا وجداتنا، وارحم من لهم الحق علينا من أمة المسلمين. اللهم ارحمهم أحياء وارحمنا وإياهم أحياء وأمواتا، واغفر لنا وتجاوز عنا إذا صرنا إلى ما صاروا إليه إنك على كل شيء قدير. إخواننا في غزة اللهم كن لهم ولي ونصيرا. اللهم كن لهم ولي ونصيرا. اللهم كن لهم ولي ونصيرا. اللهم احفظهم من بين أيديهم ومن خلفهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم ومن فوقهم، ونعوذ بك ربنا أن يغتالوا من تحتهم. اللهم كن لهم ولي ونصيرا. اللهم كن لهم ولي ونصيرا وظهيرا. اللهم كن لهم وليا ونصيرا وظهيرا. اللهم يا ربي كن لهم وليا ونصيرا وظهيرا. اللهم عليك بأعدائهم أعداء الدين. اللهم عليك بأعدائهم. اللهم احصهم عددا واقتلهم بددا ولا تغادر منهم أحدا. اللهم أرنا فيهم عجائب قدرتك. اللهم أرنا فيهم أياما سودا كأيام فرعون وهامان وجنودهما. اللهم زلزل الدماء اللهم جمد الدماء في عروقهم وزلزل الأرض من تحت أقدامهم، وأرنا فيهم عجائب قدرتك إنك على كل شيء قدير وبالإجابة جدير، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. May Allah bless you and look after you, brothers and sisters. May Allah Azza wa Jalla accept this Ramadan, this month of Ramadan from us, and give us the strength, inshallah, to do the best, inshallah, and accept the little that we do. May Allah Azza wa Jalla accept it from us and give us the reward, and protect us and and preserve our children, families, our wives, our brothers and sisters. Wherever we are, may Allah Azza wa Jalla give us the tawfiq to be, inshallah, from utaqa'ihi min an-nar. Allah Azza wa Jalla in Ramadan, He chooses certain people to be saved from hell. They are called utaqa'ullahi min an-nar. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to make us amongst those people who are saved from the hell. إنه على كل شيء قدير. جزاكم الله خيرا. Allah bless you and look after you.